Survival of ancient civilizations depended on their relationship with food, but Native Americans took it to another level. They didn't just find ways to eat, they created an entire food system that worked in perfect harmony with nature. Long before supermarkets existed, Native Americans developed an ingenious farming system that modern gardeners still study today. At the heart of their diet was a powerful trio: corn, beans, and squash, often called the Three Sisters. These weren't random plants thrown together. Native Americans discovered something remarkable. These plants actually help each other grow. Corn stalks provided natural poles for bean vines to climb, no gym membership required. The beans, in turn, enriched the soil with nitrogen that fed the corn. Below them, squash plants created a living mulch with their broad leaves, keeping weeds down and moisture in. Essentially, nature's version of a bouncer, keeping unwanted plants out of the club. This system delivered more than just agricultural efficiency. These three foods created a nutritional powerhouse that sustained entire civilizations. Corn provided carbohydrates for energy, beans delivered protein for strength, and squash offered essential vitamins and minerals. A perfectly balanced diet without a single food pyramid poster in sight. Archaeological evidence dates this brilliant farming technique back at least 5,000 years in some regions, making it one of the oldest sustainable agricultural systems on the planet. That's right, they were organic and sustainable about 4,950 years before it became trendy. The genius of this agricultural innovation allowed many Native American cultures to establish permanent settlements, develop complex societies, and support large populations, all without modern technology or scientific understanding of plant biology. Even today's experienced gardeners often struggle to replicate the perfect balance these ancient farmers achieved. One misplaced seed or poorly timed planting can throw off the entire system. The knowledge required to master this technique was passed down through countless generations, fine-tuned for specific local climates and soil conditions. You might say they were the original influencers of agriculture. While these crops provided essential nutrients, Native Americans' diet was far more diverse, incorporating a wide variety of foods from their environment. Beyond the garden, forests and meadows offered their own bounty of resources waiting to be harvested. Across North America, different tribes developed unique hunting techniques based on their environments. From the dense forests of the Northeast to the vast plains of the Midwest, each landscape demanded different approaches. Young boys started training early, learning to move silently through the woods and mimic animal calls with uncanny accuracy. By the time they reached adulthood, many could track a deer for miles just by noting a few bent blades of grass or tiny hoof prints that most of us would walk right past. Deer were the superstar of Native American hunting, providing not just meat, but materials for an astonishing array of items. An average white-tailed deer could yield up to 45 pounds of meat, enough to feed a small family for a week. But that was just the beginning of its usefulness. Hides became clothing, tendons transformed into bowstrings, bones became tools, and antlers were crafted into needles and fishhooks. Talk about zero waste. Even the deer's brain was saved and used in the tanning process to soften leather. Native Americans were implementing the use every part philosophy centuries before modern sustainability movements made it fashionable. Bison hunting on the Great Plains was an entirely different game, literally. These massive animals could weigh up to 2,000 pounds and provide enough meat to sustain multiple families. Before horses arrived with European settlers, hunting these giants required incredible coordination. Plains tribes like the Blackfoot and Comanche would organize complex group hunts that involved herding bison toward cliffs or into specially constructed corrals. These buffalo jumps, as they came to be known, were community events that could provide enough meat and materials to last through harsh winters. Some archaeological sites show evidence of these hunts dating back 12,000 years. When it came to small game, rabbits provided quick meals that could be caught with relatively simple traps. Some tribes constructed intricate snares using bent saplings that would spring up and catch rabbits by their hind legs. Others built long brush fences designed to funnel small game into waiting traps. Leave it to rabbits to fall for the same tricks over and over again, probably too busy thinking about the next generation of rabbits to notice. Wild turkeys presented their own unique challenge. Despite their reputation for being somewhat dim-witted, wild turkeys are remarkably alert birds with excellent vision. Native hunters developed special turkey calls made from wing bones that perfectly mimic the bird's distinctive gobble. A successful turkey hunter needed the patience of a statue, sometimes waiting motionless for hours until curious turkeys came within range of their bows. A few months ago, I had no idea what a health ring even was until my fiancée got me one, and I have to say, I'm shocked this isn't a widely known and used product. It tracks my stress levels, and what I found out is that some supplements made my stress score spike, while others actually helped bring it down. I adjusted a few things based on that, and honestly, I feel 10 years younger. My wife mainly uses it to track her menstrual cycles, and she is obsessed with her sleep quality score. I noticed they are currently running a limited 69% discount, but I don't know how long it will last. It's currently only $60, and it's clear. This one is the best bang for your buck, with other health rings priced around $350 with less functions. They managed to price it this low because they cut out the middleman like Amazon, Walmart, etc., who drive up the price and take a big margin, ending up with the customer paying 3 to 5 times more. If you are on TV, you can check it out yourself by pausing the video and scanning the QR code with your phone camera or clicking the first link in the description of this video. Speaking of weapons, the bow and arrow reigned supreme for most hunting situations. Native American bows weren't just sticks with strings, they were precision instruments crafted from specific woods chosen for their flexibility and strength. Arrows were custom made with different tips depending on the target. Blunt tips for birds and small game wouldn't damage the meat much, while sharp stone points were used for larger animals. Some hunting arrows featured special notches designed to increase bleeding, ensuring the animal would leave a clear trail if it ran after being hit. But not all hunting involved projectiles. In the Pacific Northwest, some tribes became experts at trapping eagles, not to kill them, but to carefully pluck a few feathers for ceremonial purposes before releasing the birds. The Pueblo people of the Southwest developed techniques for hunting rabbits using throwing sticks that could take down a running rabbit at 30 paces. Meanwhile, tribes in what is now California fashioned nets from plant fibers to capture quail and other small birds. The hunting calendar followed natural migration patterns and breeding seasons. Many tribes avoided hunting certain animals during their breeding seasons, not because of game wardens or hunting licenses, but because they understood the importance of maintaining healthy animal populations. This traditional ecological knowledge ensured sustainable hunting practices long before conservation became a scientific discipline. Weather played a crucial role in hunting success. After a fresh snow, animal tracks were easier to follow, making winter an excellent hunting season despite the cold. Some tribes even developed special snowshoes that distributed their weight, allowing them to move across deep snow while deer and other game animals struggled through drifts. Hunting wasn't just about physical skills, it was deeply connected to spiritual beliefs. Many Native American hunters performed specific rituals before a hunt and offered prayers of thanks to the animals they killed. These ceremonies reflected a profound respect for the animals that gave their lives to sustain human communities. Unlike today's trophy hunters seeking the biggest antlers for their walls, Native Americans saw animals as equals in many ways, fellow creatures deserving of respect even in death. The accumulated hunting knowledge passed down through generations represented thousands of years of careful observation and adaptation. Young hunters learned which plants deer preferred to eat, where animals were likely to bed down during hot afternoons, and how to approach from downwind to avoid detection. This wasn't information you could Google. It was earned through countless hours in the forest. Despite their hunting prowess, there were times when game was scarce or hunting conditions poor. During these lean periods, many tribes turned to another reliable source of protein. Native Americans had another reliable food source, the waters that flowed through their territories. Rivers, lakes, and coastal areas provided an abundance of protein that required different skills than hunting, but yielded equally impressive results. Did you know that some fish-catching techniques used by Native Americans thousands of years ago are still employed by modern anglers today? The fish hook, for instance, has changed surprisingly little in basic design over millennia. Early hooks were crafted from bone, shell, or wood, carefully shaped and sharpened to catch the slippery dinner swimming below the surface. Some tribes along the Pacific Northwest coast crafted hooks with such distinctive designs that archaeologists can identify which tribe made them just by studying their shape. For the Ojibwe people living around the Great Lakes, fishing wasn't just a backup plan. It was a central part of their identity. During the spawning season for sturgeon, which Native Americans called the grandfather fish, one sturgeon could feed an entire village for days. These massive freshwater fish can grow up to 7 feet long and weigh over 200 pounds. That's a lot of fish sandwiches. The harvest was so reliable that some tribal settlements were specifically positioned near sturgeon spawning grounds. The salmon runs of the Pacific Northwest elevated fishing from mere subsistence to a way of life. When salmon returned to their natal streams in mind-boggling numbers, tribes like the Chinook, Salish, and Tlingit feasted and preserved enough fish to last through winter. At the peak of a good salmon run, the fish were so numerous that legends say you could walk across the river on their backs without getting your feet wet. While that might be stretching the truth a bit, historical records do show that some streams became almost solid with fish during peak runs, making finding Nemo about as challenging as finding water in the ocean. Fishing methods varied as much as the fish themselves. Spearfishing required incredible patience and precision. Picture standing perfectly still in flowing water for hours, waiting for the perfect moment to strike with a multi-pronged spear, all while your dinner is actively trying to swim away. No wonder young people training in this skill often went hungry on their first few attempts. The fish probably swam away thinking, "Nice try, kid. Maybe stick to gathering berries for now." Fish traps showed the engineering prowess of Native Americans. Stone weirs, V-shaped rock structures built in rivers, guided fish into narrow openings where they could be speared or netted. Some of these stone structures were so well built that they've survived centuries of rushing water. In fact, remnants of ancient fish weirs can still be spotted in rivers across North America, though most modern fishermen speeding by in their boats don't recognize these rock formations for what they truly are: fishing technology that predates fishing magazines and expensive tackle boxes. In the Southwest, the Zuni and Hopi developed an ingenious method for catching fish in desert streams. They would crush specific plants and throw them into pools where fish gathered. These plants contain natural chemicals that temporarily stunned the fish, causing them to float to the surface where they could be easily collected. Once the fish recovered from their plant-induced dizziness, any that weren't caught simply swam away unharmed, an early form of catch and release that didn't even require a fishing license. Talk about organic fishing methods, no batteries required. Net fishing required both craftsmanship and teamwork. Coastal tribes crafted nets from plant fibers, some stretching hundreds of feet long. These weren't flimsy tools. They were strong enough to haul in hundreds of pounds of fish in a single cast. Operating these massive nets often required coordinated effort from multiple canoes, with signals and timing that would make Olympic rowing teams jealous. For ice fishing, northern tribes cut holes through frozen lakes and rivers, sometimes using heated stones to melt through thick ice. Once the hole was created, specially designed spears or hooks attached to lines made from sinew or plant fibers were lowered into the frigid waters. Imagine sitting on a frozen lake in sub-zero temperatures, with no modern ice shanty or propane heater. Just you, a hole in the ice, and the promise of dinner swimming below. And you thought waiting in line at the grocery store was tedious. The relationship between Native Americans and fish extended beyond just catching and eating them. Many tribes incorporated fish into their creation stories and spiritual practices. The salmon, in particular, held special significance for Pacific Northwest tribes, who viewed the fish's annual return as a sacred gift requiring proper reverence and gratitude. After a salmon feast, many tribes would return the bones to the water, believing this ritual would ensure the fish would return again the following year. A much more meaningful recycling program than sorting your plastics. Preserving the catch was just as important as catching it. Smoking fish on wooden racks preserved the meat for months, while air drying created lightweight, portable protein perfect for travel. The Tlingit people of Alaska developed a unique fermentation process for fish heads that created a distinct delicacy that would last through the winter months. Some might say it was an acquired taste, one that many European explorers never quite managed to acquire. Their loss more fermented fish heads for everyone else. Even as fishing provided essential nutrition, Native Americans never stopped searching the forests and meadows for additional food sources that required neither hook nor arrow. Before supermarkets with neatly arranged produce sections, Native Americans navigated nature's aisles, expertly identifying which plants could nourish and which might harm. The forests, prairies, and wetlands of North America offered a remarkable variety of edible treasures for those who knew where to look. This knowledge wasn't gained from books or websites, but passed down through generations of careful observation and sometimes painful trial and error. Berries were the candy of the forest, providing not just sweet flavors, but crucial vitamins and antioxidants. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, and raspberries grew wild across much of North America, ripening at different times throughout the growing season. Native Americans didn't need nutritional labels to understand these foods were special. They noticed people who ate berries regularly stayed healthier during winter months. Modern science has since confirmed what they discovered through observation. Wild berries contain significantly higher levels of nutrients than their commercially grown counterparts. Wild blueberries, for instance, contain up to twice the antioxidant content of the plump cultivated varieties found in stores today. Nuts provided concentrated energy and healthy fats essential for survival. Walnuts, hickory nuts, chestnuts, and acorns fell from trees in autumn, creating natural stockpiles on the forest floor. But don't mistake gathering for simple picking. Processing these foods required considerable skill. Acorns, which were staples for tribes from California to the eastern woodlands, contained bitter tannins that must be leached out before eating. This involved cracking, grinding, and repeatedly soaking the acorn meal in fresh water until the bitterness disappeared. Hard work, absolutely. Worth it? The resulting flour could be stored for years and provided more calories per acre than wheat or corn cultivation. Maple syrup production showcased Native American ingenuity at its finest. Each spring, as temperatures fluctuated between freezing nights and warmer days, sap began flowing in maple trees. The Anishinaabe and other northeastern tribes inserted spouts made from hollowed sumac branches into the trees and collected the watery sap in birch bark containers. Transforming this thin liquid, which is only about 3% sugar, into syrup required boiling off excess water, a process that consumed considerable firewood and time. For every gallon of finished syrup, they needed to collect and process approximately 40 gallons of raw sap. That's dedication to the sweet life. Roots and tubers served as underground storehouses of carbohydrates. The cattail, sometimes called the supermarket of the swamp, offered edible shoots, pollen, and starchy roots throughout different seasons. Jerusalem artichokes, which are neither from Jerusalem nor artichokes, provided tuberous roots that could be eaten raw or cooked. Unlike modern potatoes, these native tubers contain inulin instead of starch, making them suitable for people struggling to regulate blood sugar. Camas bulbs were so important to tribes in the Pacific Northwest that families maintained harvesting rights to specific camas meadows, creating a form of property rights centered on food resources. Wild greens brightened spring menus when other foods were scarce. Tribes across the continent harvested dandelion greens, lamb's quarters, nettles, and other leafy plants that emerged early in the growing season. These weren't just fillers. They provided crucial vitamins after winter's limited diet. Some plants required special preparation to remove irritating compounds. Stinging nettles, for instance, lose their sting when properly cooked and offer more iron than spinach. Native Americans weren't eating these greens because some nutritionists told them to eat their vegetables. They ate them because the body craves what it needs, and after winter, it needs green things. Flowers weren't just pretty to look at. Many provided edible petals, nectar, and pollen. Redbud blossoms added color and vitamin C to spring meals. Daylily buds could be eaten raw or cooked. Even certain cactus flowers were harvested in desert regions. Unlike modern folks who might place a single edible flower atop a fancy restaurant dish for garnish, Native Americans incorporated these blooms as genuine food sources that helped bridge the gap between winter stores and summer's abundance. Mushrooms required perhaps the most specialized knowledge of all forage foods. The line between delicious and deadly can be remarkably thin in the fungus world. Tribes developed expert knowledge of which mushrooms were safe, where they grew, and when they appeared. Morels, puffballs, and chanterelles were among the prized species collected and cooked. This wasn't knowledge you could afford to get wrong. One mistake could mean severe illness or death. Young foragers would spend years learning from elders before being trusted to collect mushrooms independently. Wild herbs and spices transform basic foods into vibrant meals. Sassafras root-flavored teas and stews, wild mint brightened dishes and settled upset stomachs. Juniper berries added piney notes to meat. These weren't luxury ingredients, they were medicine and food simultaneously, addressing both physical health and the human desire for varied flavors. Most impressively, Native Americans maintained mental maps of when and where specific plants would be available throughout the seasons. They didn't just know what was edible, they understood entire plant life cycles, anticipating when certain foods would emerge and planning their movements accordingly. This sophisticated botanical knowledge allowed them to harvest sustainably, ensuring these wild groceries would remain stocked for future generations. The remarkable diversity of wild-gathered foods provided nutrition that rivaled or exceeded what most modern diets offer, but these ingredients still needed to be transformed into meals. Native Americans were the original food experts, identifying which plants were nourishing and which were dangerous long before food labels existed. The forests, prairies, and wetlands were their grocery stores, offering seasonal bounty for those who knew where to look, nature's version of home delivery, minus the delivery fee. Berries were nature's vitamin packages, packed with nutrients that kept people healthy through winter. Wild blueberries contained twice the antioxidants of our domesticated varieties, a nutritional powerhouse in a tiny package. These weren't occasional treats, but essential parts of a balanced diet, proving that good things really do come in small packages. Acorns were a dietary staple, though they required careful processing to remove bitter tannins. The multi-step approach of grinding, soaking, and rinsing created flour that lasted for years and provided more calories per acre than wheat or corn. An impressive return on investment for those willing to do the work. Who knew tree droppings could be so productive? Maple syrup production demonstrated remarkable resource management. The Anishinaabe collected watery sap and patiently boiled it down to sweet syrup. 40 gallons of sap for 1 gallon of finished product. The resulting sweetener was worth every hour spent tending the boiling pots, a sweet reward for what might be history's most patient chefs. The cattail earned its nickname as the supermarket of the swamp by offering edible parts throughout different seasons, shoots in spring, pollen in summer, and starchy roots in fall and winter. Jerusalem artichokes provided tubers that were particularly suitable for balanced blood sugar, containing inulin rather than simple starch, possibly the only vegetable with a more confusing name than the eggplant. Stinging nettles transformed from painful plants to nutritional powerhouses when properly cooked, delivering more iron than spinach. Their careful harvest and preparation illustrated how seemingly hostile plants could become valuable food sources with proper knowledge. Mushroom gathering required the most specialized expertise. The difference between safe dinner and deadly mistake could be subtle visual cues. Young foragers spent years learning from elders before being trusted to identify fungi independently. These wild ingredients sustained communities for thousands of years through careful knowledge transmission and sustainable harvesting practices. Yet gathering was only half the equation. How do you cook a feast without a stove, oven, or microwave? Native Americans solved this culinary challenge with remarkable creativity. Their cooking methods weren't just practical, they often enhanced flavor in ways modern chefs try to recreate today. Fire pits formed the heart of Native American cooking. Simple holes dug in the ground and lined with stones created versatile cooking stations. Many tribes mastered the earth oven technique, heating rocks in a fire until they glowed red hot, then placing food wrapped in leaves on the rocks, covering everything with soil, and letting the trapped heat slowly cook the food. This method produced incredibly tender meat and preserved nutrients that would be lost in boiling. Speaking of boiling, how do you boil water without metal pots? Some tribes use tightly woven baskets coated with pine pitch to make them watertight. Since you can't put a basket directly over fire, they heated stones separately and dropped them into the water-filled basket. The stones would quickly bring the water to a simmer, instant soup pot. Meat was often roasted on wooden spits over open flames or dried into jerky for long-term storage. The pemmican technique, mixing dried meat with melted fat and berries, created a high-calorie survival food that would remain edible for months. 1 pound of pemmican could sustain a person during a full day of strenuous activity, making it the original energy bar. Clay pots, where available, allowed for more sophisticated cooking. The Puebloan peoples created specialized cooking vessels with narrow necks to reduce evaporation during slow simmering stews. When Spanish explorers first tasted these slow-cooked dishes after months of eating their own bland rations, they promptly wrote home requesting recipes. While their cooking tools seemed simple, the sophistication of Native American cuisine reflected deep cultural wisdom. The line between food and medicine didn't exist for Native Americans. Many items that filled their stomachs also healed their bodies, a two-for-one special that modern pharmaceutical companies are still trying to replicate. Berries weren't just tasty treats, but powerful medicine. Elderberries, which Native Americans gathered each fall, contain compounds that boost immune function. Today's research confirms what indigenous healers knew. Elderberry extract can reduce the duration of colds and flu by nearly 50%. Perhaps our ancestors' medicine cabinets should have been in the kitchen all along. Roots like echinacea and golden seal serve dual roles in Native American communities. The Cherokee used echinacea for everything from toothaches to snake bites, while modern studies show it can increase white blood cell counts. These plants weren't labeled as superfoods back then, but they certainly deserved the title more than some trendy items on today's health food store shelves. Certain foods acquired sacred status due to their importance. Corn wasn't merely a staple crop, but a central character in creation stories. The Hopi people considered blue corn a direct gift from the spirit world, while the Iroquois celebrated the green corn ceremony to give thanks for successful harvests. These weren't just meals, they were meaningful connections to cultural identity and spiritual beliefs. Communal feasting strengthened social bonds. When a hunter brought home a deer, it wasn't just his family who benefited. Many tribes maintained strict protocols for meat distribution that ensured everyone in the community received a portion. Some Plains tribes had as many as 27 different rules about who got which parts of a buffalo, the original portion control system with built-in social security. Tobacco and cacao held special places in Native American traditions, used in ceremonies rather than casual consumption. Tobacco was offered as prayers carried through smoke, while pure cacao was reserved for sacred rituals and important celebrations, nothing like the sugar-loaded versions we consume today. These traditional connections between food, medicine, and cultural identity didn't simply feed bodies. They nourished whole communities and preserved essential knowledge across generations, creating a relationship with food that was far more meaningful than today's drive-through culture could ever understand.